Sure. A very good morning to all my dear students. I welcome you all into the Industrial Pharmacy First. My dear students, today we will be on to the new topic belonging to the new unit. So that is the parenteral product, which will belongs to that of the unit 4 from the syllabus belonging to the subject Industrial Pharmacy First. As per the syllabus prescribed by the Pharmacy Council of India for the BPharm third year, fifth semester, the parenteral product. So today we will on to the very first lecture of the parenteral products. Now, before directly going to the details of the parenteral products through our slides, let's have some general discussion related with these. Now, what will be these products? So again, these are nothing but the kinds of the dosage form which are to be given by other than that of the oral route. That means these are not taken by the mouth, or these are not to be introduced into the oral cavity, but these are to be given by other route than that of the oral. The details we will going to come to know that what these parenterals are, what is their meaning, what will be the advantages, what will be the disadvantages, what will be the ideal characteristics of the parenteral products, why these are going to be selected. Now, if you see basically as a dosage form, so this particularly belonging to the liquid kind of the dosage form. So there are solid dosage form like tablet capsules. There are semi-solid dosage forms like say the creams, ointments, gels, jellies, pastes. Then there are liquid dosage form like say the solution, suspension, emulsion, elixir. Then the parenteral one. Parenteral, they will also belong to that of the liquid dosage form. But what makes these dosage form different from that of the other liquid dosage form? That is their properties like say the sterility, freedom from that of the particle size, and the freedom from that of the parogens. Now, all these details we will going to study that how these products are, what are their routes, how these are to be given, what are their formulation, what are the stringent requirement, how these are going to be manufactured, and how these are going to be evaluated. In today and in the coming subsequent lectures in coming weeks, right? So with this, now let's begin with the parenteral product. We will go through our slides related with that of the parenteral. Now the basic learning outcome related with this subject is to understand the fundamentals, like say the concepts, advantages, disadvantages of the parenteral products, the requirements of the parenteral product, the important for pre-formulation factors. Although most of the details we had already covered while studying the pre-formulation in sufficient depth, but what is relevant to that of the parenteral product, that again we have to highlight, that again we have to recall, revise the things here in this parenteral product. Then we will see the different routes of administration of the parenteral product and their suitability. What are the different routes and in which particular case these are going to be suitable. Now, in order to achieve these learning outcomes, our lesson plan that will move like say the introduction of the parenteral, their principal characteristics, then advantages and disadvantages of the parenterals, pre-formulation of the parenteral that is associated with the solubility, pH, pKa and the relationship, then the crystal characteristics, the modification which is to be required, that is said to be the chemical modification, and the polymorphism. Then we will see the different routes of administration of the parenterals. Now, basically, if you see as a dosage form, as I told you that there are solid, semi-solid, and the liquid. In case of liquid, the one which are to be taken by non-oral route, these are going to be called as the injections or the injectables. And in pharmaceutical term, it is called as the parenteral. So if we define the parenteral, what these are? These are the liquid dosage form which are to be given by non-oral route, right? So that is the injectable, that is the parenterals. If we want to see the meaning of parenteral, how the particular term parenteral it came. Basically, the parenteral, that is the combination of two different terms, that is the para enteron. Para, that is outside. Enteron refers to that of the intestine. So the route in which the substances, drugs, medicinal compounds that are to be given outside that of the intestine or by the route other than that of the intestinal, that is oral. So such dosage forms or such products are said to be the parenteral products. If you see the standard pharmacopoeial requirements which are given into the official book, pharmacopoeial requirement, that means the requirement that are mentioned into the official books. The parenteral product, they must maintain the sterility. They should be free from that of the pyrogen. That means they should have the non-pyrogenicity and the presence and absence of the particulate matter. The size range above than that of the 0.5 micron, that is not permissible. It should be less than that of the 0.5 microns. Let us summarize the different advantages of the parenteral. What it will be? The very first, that is the onset of action. In case of parenteral, you will going to find there is a quick onset of action compared to that of the other dosage form, like say the solid, semi-solid, tablet, elixir, suspension, paste, creams, jellies. Compared to all these, the parenteral, they will give the quick onset of action because the as soon as the drug that is administered 100% it is into the systemic circulation, 100% it is the plasma drug concentration, so it will give the higher bioavailability, and because of which it will give the quick onset of action. In no time it will start its pharmacological action, it's producing its pharmacological effect. It is useful in cases such as in case of the patients when they are unconscious, uncooperative, and vomiting. These are the cases where the oral route that will not remain acceptable, or the dosage form or the drugs that cannot be given by these routes. So therefore, the parenteral that is effective in these cases. The duration of action can be prolonged by modifying the formulation. We can go on designing the depot kind of formulation in order to modify the duration of action. Or we can go for choosing a particular suitable kind of the crystalline form so that the duration of action that can be prolonged, or we can quickly start the onset of action. Suitable for the nutritives like say the glucose and the electrolyte. In case of patients who are comatose, in case of patients who are uncooperative, in that cases, the parenteral route that will remain the route of choice as a total parenteral nutrition. All kinds of energy sources, electrolyte, they can be provided through this route in the form of the intravenous infusions. It is suitable for the drugs which are inactivated in the GI tract and the hydrochloric acid, that is the gastrointestinal fluid. Let's say, for example, beta-lactam antibiotics like say the penicillin G and the penicillin V. In addition to this, the peptides and the proteins, they cannot be given by the oral route. So the parenteral that will remains the route of choice. Now, if we want to see the disadvantages, you can see there are list of disadvantages. As we saw, there are number of advantages. At the same time, there are certain limitation in the form of the disadvantages. The first and most important disadvantage is like say only trained person is required, like you, like me, or like other one cannot go for giving this parenteral route. or the tablet capsule, any layman, just if we ask him to take these tablets or capsules, they can take it, just place it and just take it the sip of water and they can administer it. But that is not the case associated with the parenteral. It requires the skilled person, trained person, like say the nurses, pharmacist, ward wise, but pharmacist also, they should be properly trained for this. Like we pharmacists, we are not in a position to give the drugs by the parenteral route. This is to be noted. I want to quote it here. If wrong route that is to be given, it is very difficult to control the adverse effects, right? Because the drug that is appearing into the systemic circulation, once it will appears into the systemic circulation, its action cannot be reverted back unless and until we can give the antidote, right, or the antagonist. Then only this may be possible. But as the drug that is already into the systemic, so it is going to be distributed over all of the body. So it is very difficult to control the adverse effects. In case of tablet, just if we found that wrong tablet had been taken, we can just spit it out, or we can go for the gastric lavage, because once it will goes into the stomach, it will require say minimum say 5 to 10 to 30 minutes in order to start its action. In least cases, the 5 minutes, minimum 5 minutes at least we will be getting. But in case of parenteral, that is not the case. If overdoses are given, these are difficult to save the patient. That is very true, because we cannot able to halt the action. Once it has been released, that means it will show its action. The sensitivity or the allergic reactions that are very common at the site of injection. You can see there are certain patients who are very sensitive to that of the allergic conditions, like say the penicillin and all, right? So in that cases, they will show the aggravated reactions. That is the allergic reaction or the sensitivity reactions at the site of action. So that will lead to this redness, that will lead to the atopy, that will lead to the itching, pruritus, and the dermatitis. So sometime in extreme cases, this may even lead to that of the anaphylactic reaction, that is the hypersensitivity reaction, which may lead to the life of an individual. So there is a strict necessity, or it will require the strict control of sterility and non-pyrogenicity as compared to the other formulation, because it is going to be bypassing the defense mechanisms, the cellular and the skin barrier, and it is appearing into the bloodstream. So there is a strict necessity to have the sterility, freedom from that of the microorganism and free from that of the pathogens. Once injected, cannot be controlled. Once injected, it cannot be retreated. Injections that may cause pain at the site of administration, because in order to administer the drug, there is a need to puncture the skin, and this skin puncturing that will lead to the pain at the site of administration. We cannot go on giving the frequent administration at the same time, that may lead to the swelling, thromboembolism, and the pain. We have to go on rotating the site of injections. We have to maintain the pH, because pH also that is responsible in order to maintain the pain free injections. So ideally, if we see what the properties are required for the parenteral, they should be sterile, they should be isotonic, they should be free from pyrogens, and they should have the safety. Now, safety in terms of say when the drug is given, it is giving or it is appearing into the systemic circulation. So, at most necessity is that it should be very, very, very safe. So to solve these problems like say solubility, stability, tonicity, these are the selected excipients should be safe and to use. So when we are selecting all these, right from say manufacturing, right from say selection of the raw material, process of manufacturing, filling, sealing, packaging, storing, everywhere the strict safety precautions need to be maintained in order to maintain the properties of the parenteral product. Sterility, as far as sterility is concerned, what it is the 100% freedom from that of the microbial contamination, microbial spores and their organisms, right? So in order to maintain this sterility, it is very necessary to follow the valid sterile procedures at all components, for all components, like say the containers, like say the utensils, glasswares, the equipments, the raw materials, the procedures, the personnels, all, they should be sterile. Strict sterility is to be maintained. Valid procedure for aseptic filtration, design, and maintenance of the clean rooms that is necessary. Valid test now what these clean rooms and all that we are going to come to know while studying the manufacturing section and the different classes of the rooms, class 100, class 1000, class 10,000, class 1 lakh likewise. Valid test methods for sterility of the product are to be maintained. Then there is need to follow the maintenance of the containers and the closures integrity. Non-pyrogenicity, again, that is most important thing, because what the pyrogens are, these are the metabolic products of the microorganisms, and when they will enter into our body, they will lead to the rise into the body temperature. Now the Limulus amoebocyte lacet, that is the LAL test that is used for the quantitative detection of the bacterial endotoxins. So we can go for depyrogenation, that is to removal of the pyrogens. We can use the method which is said to be the extraction, adsorption, and the ultrafiltration. By this method, we can make the product free from that of the pyrogens. The product that should be free from that of the particles, free from the visible particle contamination, free from any kind of the visible particulate matter. Ideally, if you see, not greater than or equal to 10 to 25 micrometer. In order to maintain all these, again, we need to follow the valid cleaning method at all equipments and packaging materials. There is a need to follow the valid solution filtration procedures. There is a need to follow the appropriate training of the personnel, and there is a need to use the sterile solution products. The physical, chemical, and the microbial stability is most important, and this is to be maintained right from manufacturing till its shelf life, till it will reaches to the hands of the customer, until it is administered to the patients. So parenteral drug product, they should be stable under predetermined manufacturing and the packaging conditions. There is need to strictly maintain the physical and the chemical stability throughout the shelf life. It should be compatible. All the parenteral product, they should be compatible with that of the formulation, with the packaging material, with the containers, and with all the diluents. So compatibility, that should be associated with the raw material, packaging material, and the diluents. There is a need to have the isotonicity. Isotonicity, that is the property in which the tone of the blood plasma that is going to be maintained with that of the body fluids, right? Now, normally if we say isotonicity, there is a presence in case of the biological cell. What the biological cell will do, they will maintain the concentration of the ions or the segregated species and the molecules inside of the cells by regulating it, right? Now, when we are giving something externally into the systemic circulation, like say the parenterals, there is a need to maintain the isotonicity. So when its osmotic pressure that will matches with that of the body fluid, then we can say that it will be having the isotonic, or it is isotonic with that of the blood plasma. But suppose if it is less, then in that case, what will happen? The cell or the biomolecules or the ions or the fluid that will start coming out of cell, and it will start entering inside of the RBCs. So the RBCs, they will go on increasing into their size. So this is because of the hypotonic solution, which will lead to the enlargement of the cells. And if it is too much hypotonic, what will happen? The cell cannot able to withstand the incoming liquid pressure, and it will go on bursting. So that will lead to the hemolysis. Contrary to this, if the solution is hypertonic, what will happen? The fluids start flowing from that of the cells to the uh, body or outside of the RBCs. From RBC, the cells start coming out of RBC. So as a result of which it will lead to the shrinkage. Now, if we see these two conditions, hypertonic and the hypotonicity, the hypotonicity, that is dangerous compared to that of the hypertonic. It is necessary to maintain the isotonic, but if it is not possible to maintain the tone, it should, if it is slightly hypertonic, it's okay, but it should not be, it should never be hypotonic. because that will lead to the bursting of the RBCs. So hypotonic fluids which are to be given by the parenteral route that are highly dangerous compared to that of the hypertonic. Now, next is the different routes of administration. You can see there are various routes of administration. As you can see, the primary routes of administration, that is the intravascular route, subcutaneous route, intradermal route, right? There is a intravenous route, right? Now, if you see the intramuscular route, this is the intravascular route which will be given directly deep into the muscle tissues. Here particularly the volume which is to be given, that is 0.5 ml to 2 ml, and all types of formulations they can be given by the intramuscular route. You can see there are different route, like say this is the subcutaneous tissue, and inside this subcutaneous tissue if the injections are given, these are said to be the subcutaneous injection. And in this route particularly, the insulins and the vaccines, these are going to be given, and the volume that will in the range of 0.5 to 2 ml. Whereas into the deeper into the veins, if the drugs are given, then that is said to be the intravenous route, where the volume may range from 1 ml to that of the 100 ml, and the route that is suitable to the all types of the formulations. There is a route which is said to be the intradermal route, that is into the dermis, that is into the uppermost skin layers. Here, particularly in order to test the allergies, the drugs that are to be given, like say the antibiotics or the tuberculin antigen, that is to be given into the upper layer of the skin into the dermis in order to test the allergy. Now, in addition to all these primary route, that is the intravascular, intravenous, subcutaneous, there are other routes which are said to be the intra-arterial. That means the administration of drug directly into the arteries. Intrathecal route, the administration of drug into the spinal cord. Epidural, intraepidural, that is into the CSF fluid, cerebrospinal fluid. Intra-articular, that is the administration of the drug or the injections. They are to be given into the between the joints. Intracardial, there is an introduction or there is a injection into the cardiac tissues, into the heart. There is an intrapleural, right? That means the drug that is to be given in case of the pleural layers into the of the lungs. So all these are the different route. So you can see here in case of intramuscular, this already we saw. In case of intrathecal, that is into the intraspinal, 1 to 4 ml, that will be the volume. The drugs which are to be given are the local anesthetic, and the analgesics and the neurolytic agents. Intracardial, directly into the heart when the life is threatened. In that case only this is used. 0.2 to 1 ml, that is the advisable volume. The cardiotonic drugs and the calcium, these are given by the intracardial route. Intraepidural, that is into the epidural space near the spinal column. 6 to 30 ml, that is to be given. Local anesthetic, narcotic, and the steroid. These are the drugs of choice which are to be given by the intraepidural route. Intraarticular route, that is the direct introduction into the joints. 2 to 20 ml volume that is given. The drugs which are to be given or the categories are the anesthetics, like say the morphine, local anesthetics, steroid, NSAIDs, and the antibiotics. Intrapleural, that is directly into the pleural cavity of the lungs, 2 to 30 ml volume that is to be given. And the local anesthetic, narcotic, and the chemotherapeutic agents, these are going to be generally selected by this route. Now, if you see the pre-formulation of the parenteral, there is necessity to maintain, or there is a necessity to give due attention to that of the pre-formulation aspects while designing, developing, and modifying the formulation associated with the parenterals. We know that what the pre-formulation is. It is an art, it is an act of learning something before doing, isn't it? Learning something before doing, that is what is the pre-formulation. So study of the all physical, chemical, biological, and the therapeutic characteristic of the drug component. So that is the pre-formulation. So this is important in order to maintain the product safe, effective, and the stable formulation. So that is the basic idea behind the any kind of a pre-formulation study. So important properties associated with the parenteral product, that is the solubility, pKa, pH, solid state characteristic, chemical modification of the drug, and the polymorphism. Because there is a interrelationship between the solubility, pKa, and the pH. Now, if you see the solubility, what it is the function of hygroscopicity, chemical nature, and the pKa of the salt. The solid that is going to be introduced into the solvent and it will get dissolved in order to give the solubility. Now, when a drug substance that is dissolved in a liquid, it gets dissociated into the ionized and the unionized form. And we know that which is more permeable, ionized or the unionized one? Yes, very correct. The unionized substances, these are lipid soluble. So there is a fast permeation and they will get absorbed rapidly. Compared to that, if we see the ionized substances, these are lipid insoluble and their permeation is very, very low and their absorption, thus it is very, very poor. If you see the percentage of ionization, which can be calculated by the formula for acidic compounds, it is the pH is equal to pKa plus log of ionized drug divided by the unionized drug concentration. Vice versa is the case for the basic drugs. For basic drugs, it is the pH is equal to pKa plus log of unionized drug concentration divided by the ionized drug concentration. So the degree of ionization that will depend on the pH. For acidic drugs, the pKa that will in the range of 3 to 7.5. For basic drugs, the pKa that will ranges from 7 to 11. Now, pH that is most important. There is a need to strictly maintain the pH. Ideally, if you see the 7 pH, that is preferable one because it is the pH of the blood. So anything which we are giving by the parenteral route, it should have the ideal pH value to that of the blood. What will happen if it is less? What will happen if it is more? If it is alkaline one, like say pH 9 or more than that of, it will lead to that of the tissue necrosis. And if it is very, very strongly acidic, like say the 3, then that will lead to the extreme pain at the site of injection. In order to enhance the solubility, we can go for modifying the pH. We can change the pH. We can use the co-solvents. We can go for alteration of the dielectric constant. We can go for solubilization by the surfactant, complexation, hydrotrophy, and the chemical modification of the drugs. So out of all these methods, one can go for selecting any one based on in order to improve the solubility. We can go for use of the co-solvents also, like say the conjugate acid base system that must be chosen carefully. So what is most important for the parenteral product? There is a need to maintain the balance of the solubility with that of the pH and the pKa. There are various solid state characteristics like say the amorphous form when it is existing into the undefined structural form. So that is said to be the amorphous form. And the crystalline form, the crystalline that is existing in case of the polymorphs, solvate, co-crystal form. Polymorphs are what? These are nothing but the same chemical composition and their different molecular packaging or the different physical forms. Solvents, these are same types of the substances, chemical substances, but with the molecules of the solvent regularly incorporated into a unique molecular packaging. Co-crystal, that is the crystalline material composed of two or more molecules in the same crystal lattice. If you see the crystalline form, which is into the raw material, we can go for determination, identification of this by the X-ray pattern diffraction method, which will give the sharp peaks. If it is the slow absorption, then in that case, so such they will use the slow absorption and their prolonged duration of action, because the absorption is slow, that means duration of action that will be for a longer duration. Example is say they like theophylline monohydrate, and theophylline anhydrase form, it is the rapid absorption, so that will give the short duration of action. So that is the amorphous form, again that will give the diffused peaks. Now, why we are going for the chemical modification of the drugs? Because of the certain uh, properties for certain characteristics in order to achieve certain benefits, like say to enhance the depot action, to improve the stability, to alter the drug solubility, and to avoid the formulation difficulties, and to reduce the pain at the site of injection. So there is a need to chemically modify the drug. The modification that might be either in the form of the salt form, ester form, or to the other form, like say the hydrochloride, propionate, or likewise. Chemical modification of the drug, like say the sodium and the potassium salts, these are applicable to that of the weak acids. Hydrochloride and the sulfate salt, these are applicable to the weak bases. If the solubility of a drug is to be reduced to enhance the stability or to prepare a suspension, the formulator may prepare water insoluble salt, right? So water insoluble salt preparation, that is most important if the solubility of a drug that need to be reduced or to enhance the stability. Polymorphism, again, we know that there is existence into the different form. The several crystal form of a given chemical compound exhibits the different physical properties. That is said to be the polymorphism. And the conversion of one form of polymorph into the another, that will cause a significant change into the physical properties of a drug, and it has important formulation, biopharmaceutical and the chemical processes implications. The best example is of the carbon that is existing into the crystalline form, the carbon that is existing into the diamond form, the graphite form, isn't it? So these, they will be having different kinds of the physical chemical characteristic, stability characteristics, right? So based on the necessity, one has to go for selecting a particular type of polymorphic form. If you see the cortisone acetate and the indomethacin, for cortisone acetate, we are going to find the 5 morphic form. So out of these, only the form number 1, that is more stable one. For indomethacin, there is existence of the 3 polymorphic form. Out of these 3, the first and second, that will be having the higher therapeutic efficacy. So therefore, it is very necessary. It is the duty, it is the responsibility of the formulation scientist to go for selecting and choosing a particular kind of the formulation, a particular kind of the polymorphic form that is suitable to their formulation. So therefore, it is their duty to go for choosing all these very carefully. So let's go for summarizing the things that we had studied, that we had discussed in our today's lecture. So what we saw the basic concepts of the parenteral dosage form, the different pre-formulation factors with respect to the parenteral dosage form, the advantages, disadvantages of the parenterals, the ideal properties of the parenterals, and the different routes of administration for the parenteral dosage form. In order to maintain the parenteral dosage form safe, effective, there is a need to maintain, there is a need to have the proper solubility, there is a need to concentrate onto the pH, pKa, and rest of the things. So that is what is as far as our today's talk is concerned. So today we will stop here only. Thank you very much. Have a good day to all of you.